Well, you're in for a treat. 5 years ago, I interviewed newlyweds, Langston and Shay Jacobs, and they spoke of the challenges and rewards of being newly married. And today, 5 years later, they're now also parents of 2 boys, Elijah and Josiah. How do you find balance in marriage, parenting, and ministry? Well, to help us answer these questions, Mr. and Mrs. Jacobs are back with us. Langston and Shay, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having us.
How time flies. It was 5 years. You guys had been married for about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so what are some of the things that God has revealed to you now that you're 5 years in? And I, again, listeners, I encourage you to go back into the deep archives, 5 years ago archives on drpegradio.com and look for that it was called The Newlywed Game was the name of that episode with my guests, Mr. and Mrs. Langston and Shay Jacobs. And so I trust there's been a lot of fruit and some of the ways that the Lord has revealed himself to you over this time. Can you share some of that?
Well, I think some of that revelation is that it takes 2. Mm-hmm. Sometimes as a male, or maybe it's just personality specific, I have a tendency to want to fix things. And, you think about some of the old talk shows where the male would always try and fix things and they would end up worse, or they say it's fixed and there's all these spare parts left. Mm-hmm. And so I had to learn that it takes 2. And I had to learn to be vulnerable. One thing that to kind of coincide with what Shay was saying about the deep level of healing, I had to learn to not wear a mask. The Lord, even as the Lord started to minister to me, as I was ministering at that time, it was ministering to me a lot about me, about removing the mask, and that's what's the beauty about marriage is there is no mask. There is no need to hide. There is no need to not share. Sharing makes things more intimate, and so does transparency makes things much more intimate.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that always the case? I'd say the Lord, 99.9% of the time, if I'm praying about someone else and Lord change them, 99.9% of the time, the message is for me. And where there's transparency in marriage, I also see marriage and our spouse as a mirror.
It is.
To help us see ourselves better.
It is a mirror. I think for me, one of the words that the Lord spoke to me throughout the marriage is, humility. Humility goes a long way, and some practical things, gentle answers, humility, consider someone better than yourself. Through some of the transforming times in our marriage, as the Lord was speaking to me, he would tell me, you need to pour out your cup. And what that meant was you have all of these ideas, expectations, and perceptions of how you thought this marriage would be. And I need for you to pour out your cup so that I, in turn, can give you something and replace your expectations and your ideas with what's really true and what's really necessary and what's the core things, right? Love, and he showed me this vision. And as Langston and I talked very transparency, Langston's cup was more empty and his cup, God could feel. He would say, hey, I've never been married before. There's a lot I don't know. And so everything I'm fleecing the Lord for. And so his cup was empty and God could fill his cup up. My cup was so full you couldn't put anything in it because I had plans and ideas and notions and this is the way it should be. And this is the way I think it should be and the way I want it to be and the way I kind of imagine it to be. And so those were some very transparent times and very humbling times. Not that all the ideas are bad, not that they were ungodly ideas, but to come under the yoke of God's covenant to partner with your partner and say, but where are we really? Where we thought we might be in some areas might not be the reality where we are. So how do we back up and take a really quick picture of where we are so that we can be on the same page, move together, versus telling him, catch up with me over here. I'm this is what we doing. I'm doing, and so a lot of things I just had to simmer it down and make room for a greater expansion versus what I thought it should be.